Oh yeah, we talking about love today. It always protects, it always trusts, it always hopes, it always perseveres. What does this mean biblically and practically? Let's talk about it. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 7 is where we find all of these details. And it always protects is such an interesting way to start out this final phase of love that we're walking through in 1 Corinthians 13. Again, the context, Paul is discussing the usage of spiritual gifts, and in the midst of it, telling us what love is and what love is not. And of course, the Oxford definition for protect is to keep safe from harm or injury. And similar words that are related to this word, such as shield, preserve, defend, shelter, secure, take care of, guard. So to simply put it in this way, this agape love that we've talked about this entire journey provides security, always provides security and safety, concerns protecting others, always concerns the well-being of others, keeping them from places of harm and hurt, not placing them in such positions in any way. This also does not create harm or danger sourced in selfish desires. So think of examples like people who will allow their emotions to get the best of them in situations that could cause pretty disturbing results. Maybe it's prison and jail time. Maybe it's somehow, some way doing and putting the family in harm's way, putting those you love in harm's way due to your selfish desires. So for somebody to really love you in this space, they are not going to willingly put you or others that they claim to love in position to make a decision against them or make a decision that would cause you to then leave, right? Make a decision that would ultimately just distraught and destroy so much in progress, in place. So let's even put it in more plain terms. You cannot say that you are protecting somebody by simply cheating, lying, being dishonest, devaluing others, even to great lengths, disrespecting them. Because we all have encountered people who will tell you that I was just doing this because I cared for you. I loved you. I did all this. Not in the formality, though, of cheating, lying, so on and so forth. Now, this is where it can get a little interesting because we can always think of some kind of scenario right on the money that might challenge such a perspective, right? Oh, well, what if I'm trying to keep my loved one from getting caught up by malicious criminals or getting caught up by police officers who are after him and he's running from the cops? Like, what do we do, right? How do I not love them if I'm protecting them? How do we deal with this? And of course, this is just one small scenario out of all, but I think it could fit into a lot of it because we also have to consider the context of such situations. If somebody is being protected for the sake of not doing something wrong, and we know this is the case, this is evident. Okay, we're not aiding and abetting. We're not hiding somebody who actually probably should be charged with something, should be placed in jail, should be headed to downtown police department, right? Because they've done some horrible things, and yeah, you need to go do some time. This is definitely different compared to protecting somebody who isn't innocent, but you just love them. What's really interesting here is doing right by them and loving them would actually be the opposite of helping them escape from correction and due discipline that they need in order to get on the right track of things. So if we're really going to move by this formality of what agape love looks like, again, standing for what's right against what is wrong, we're not going to put ourselves in position to have to protect somebody who has literally done wrong and are in the wrong. And furthermore, that individual doesn't express love in that moment, putting you in that position to have to choose them or choose what's right. And so there's so many contexts and considerations to think of, because then we get into conversations about love and loyalty, right?
Oh, well, she was loyal. He was loyal 10 toes down. That was my guy, so I ain't even really tripping. He really took one for the team. He a real one.
No, we not really gonna ride with that, at least in this context and how we are applying it. Because see, I don't really believe that you can have true loyalty without love. Loyalty and love are not to be separated. Loyalty and love are to join together. And if one is truly loyal to you, they're going to choose to do right by you, not by way of agreement, not by way of supporting wrong decisions, but by way of being present, being available, and leading in the right direction. So we're going to be focusing on pouring in truth, pouring in encouragement and abundance, telling you what it is, telling you what it isn't, and furthermore, how are we going to move forward about it? It's a very cultural perspective. Somebody can love you and stab you in the back. That's not true, right? That's not true, because for somebody to go out of their way to do such a thing is not an expression of love. And you might want to question if they ever did love you, if they felt okay to do such a thing. Because when we look at this love that is described in this text, whole different world. This is a love that is always placing others into consideration and not really placing ourselves at the forefront of everything, making selfish decisions from places of selfish desires. This is not suggesting that we protect people from justice who have done wrong and are in the wrong. This is rather protecting people, creating places of safety and security, considering the well-being of others, considering the perspectives and placements of others, considering where others are, how others might be impacted by the decisions we make. This is what's going to keep us from making selfish decisions that have greater impacts than just the moment we're currently in. And so maybe you feel that you haven't been protected. Maybe you feel, based on listening to this, that man, you may have never encountered a love that they actually valued protecting you for you, protecting your heart, protecting where you were, and being mindful and considerate of where you are, that therefore impacted the decisions they made. But here's some questions that I want to throw to you that gives you some thought to think about as you move forward in building healthy biblical relationships and knowing what that looks like. Are people safe around you? Are people able to come to you and you create a safe space around them? Do they feel as if they are heard, understood, listened to? Do they have room and capacity in your life to feel as if they can come to you and speak on things that are on their heart, that are on their mind, something that they may need help with, they may be struggling with, and not feel as if by any means necessary, if they were to say anything, that then all of their secrets and stories would be exposed, would be spilled, would be all over social media. They would be dragged and laughed at and ridiculed and mocked. They would be talked down to, right? A lot of aggression is moved towards them. What kind of space are you creating for the people in your life? Now, again, I just have to keep reiterating this, because we really love to go out of our way to do certain things and color it as love, when in reality, it's not love. We're keeping people from being held accountable. We're keeping people from owning up to mistakes. We're covering for people when we really shouldn't. And there actually is a lot of blessing in allowing people, y'all gonna might trip out at this, letting them fall on their face, letting people make decisions and live with the results of their decisions. And it's not the worst thing in the world, because they're actually having an opportunity to learn and grow as an individual. Whereas if we are just going to continue to recover people from the poor mistakes they make, it almost tends to create a kind of crutch. And so we don't want to create that. And that's actually a formality of love. That's not a formality of hate. That's not a formality of dislike, of dishonor. No, that can literally be a form of love. We got a proverb. We got Bible for this, y'all. Think about Proverbs chapter 19, verse 19, which reads this: a man of great wrath shall suffer punishment, for if you deliver him, yet you must do it again. So there's this understanding that if I keep bailing this person out, if I keep claiming that I'm just doing this out of love, and every time they get into some trouble and every time they get into some things that they need a bailout for, they're going to keep coming to me because I keep bailing them out, right? And they never learn, they never grow, they never develop, they never allow those things to really work on them. Now, granted, there can be times, and maybe a first couple times, maybe one time, where somebody might need some help in some areas. And of course, that doesn't mean that we just walk up and say, no, I ain't trying to help you. No, I mean, there are times where that stuff is called for, right? You be a helping hand, of course, not necessarily to the things that are injustice and are surrounding injustice. But if you're looking to be a helping hand to somebody, that is a form of love. You extending your hand, you being of service, but just pay attention to how they might circle back. And every time they come into that problem and situation, they come back to you. That's something to keep in mind, because that could be somebody who may not be dealing with the repercussions of their actions, may not be dealing and becoming creative with their decision making, right? And so they're coming to you because they need a bailout. And every time we find ourselves in those positions, it can easily start becoming less of love and more of like being taken advantage of, right? And really what love could look like in those situations is maybe not giving them what they want, right? Maybe trying to be a helping hand and dealing with the bigger picture. Hey, so like, what are you really struggling with? How could I really be of service to you to help you be more creative about your situation so you don't have to keep coming my way, when trouble arises, right? And that's not a wrong thing to say, a wrong conversation to have. It's something to consider that would actually, in a lot of cases, be more beneficial to that person moving forward, right? Because God forbid, something happens to you and they don't no longer have that access. Now, what are they going to do, right? At some point, they got to get up and keep living and keep moving and making better decisions. So there comes a time where we are of a helping hand. Of course, again, not towards things that are injustice. And we want to be careful and mindful of this person's quickness to potentially use you as a crutch. They're just like, yo, I can just do this again and again because I know I got my homeboy, my homegirl to bail me out. I know I got this person who loves me to bail me out, right? And you might hear people be like,
oh, but don't you love me? Don't you got love for me?
Yes, I do have love for you. This is why I can't keep allowing you to continuously use me as a crutch to get away from things that you need to deal with and you need to do better with and you need to make better decisions about, instead of coddling all the way through, because we know that in the end that may not be of the greatest service. And so that's something to think about. And when we talk about protection, we're talking about consideration of others. This love considers others. This love is stepping into the shoes of others. How would they feel about this situation? How would they view this situation? Is there anything that I'm doing that would impact them? Is there any decision that's in front of me, selfish desire that I want to act on, that if I did, it would actually hurt and not help anything? Is there security, protection here with this individual, with this space? Am I giving such to the individual and the people that I encounter and have conversations with? So just some things to think about. Here's another question that I would ask you. Are you willing to protect others even if you don't get what you want? This is a good one too, because sometimes we have a way of limiting the love that we give to people. We have a way of withdrawing and withholding the love we give to people.
Oh, I'm only going to love you and I'm only going to do this and do that if you give to me.
Right? It's that match, that same energy type of conversation that's always had. And this whole Corinthians chapter that we've journeyed through has literally stripped that away from us. We don't even get to hold on to that view anymore, because there's nowhere in this text where it tells us that we are to move at this level based on what somebody else does for us and what somebody else gives to us and what type of energy that person gives to us. No, this is a temperature that we're able to set because we're choosing to follow after Christ. And because he's the standard, I would love for you to treat me right and give me what I'm giving to you. It doesn't have to change how I'm moving towards you, whether you give it or don't. And that's a hard thing to realize. And that's something to grow in. That's not something that we just pick up one day and we just got it all together. This is a daily thing. You're going to fight through this. Can I tell you how the journey's really going to look? You're going to fight through this. There are going to be days where you're frustrated, days where you're tired of it, days where you're mad, days where you're sad, days when you're crying, you're frustrated because they're just not giving you anything. But this is something to consider, because this is the whole process of really learning to love at such a level that causes you to die to yourself daily for the greater good of the relationships and people you encounter. So are you willing to protect others even if you don't get what you want? Are you the type to withhold your love? Are you the type to limit that from other people because they're not giving you what you want? If so, what is it really about? You're no longer willing to create safe spaces, safe environments. You're no longer willing to put their thoughts into consideration because you're not getting what you need. What is that really about? And is that really reflective of this kind of love? I would say it's not. And the challenge is to die to our selfishness for the greater good of the relationships we're creating, to love at such a level that people are able to ultimately see Christ, which is the mission, with anybody we encounter. Here's a final question. Do you use the information people tell you as ammo against them? Now, this is kind of a part of that protection thing, right? Because it only takes one time for a lot of people to feel as if their vulnerability and their transparency, their honesty is taken advantage of. The moment you load up that clip of all the times you were storing up in your mind, you was taking those down on all the things they did and didn't do for you and all the dirt and stuff that they've been spilling out to you. And the moment you unload that clip in an argument, the moment you unload that on somebody in the midst of a conversation, the moment they said something you didn't like, the moment they did something you didn't like, prepare to deal with an even greater consequence after that. I don't know if there's anything more loud than somebody who is deathly silent because they no longer feel safe. What's most important in learning how to navigate those situations is being able to put our feet in the shoes of the individual that we're encountering, right? How would I feel if I were in their shoes? If I had as much on my mind and heart as they do theirs, and I needed a place to just really get some things off, really say some things, really get clarity on things, how would I feel? Right? Because again, the last thing we want to do is take that thing and use it as ammo, because then we're just granting room and an opportunity for that individual to shut down at an even faster rate. And it's going to be even harder to gain that trust back to the point where everything is okay and safe enough to have certain conversations and to talk about things and to address things. Here's another question for you, because I think this also plays a role in this situation. Can you still desire protection for someone who's offended you? Because think about, in a lot of those conversations and scenarios, when it comes to using ammo against somebody, when they have said a lot of things, have been extremely vulnerable with us, we know a lot of their mess and secrets. We know a lot of their messiness and craziness, right? A lot of times offense is what drives us to that place of thinking about using it as ammo. You know, they said something that we didn't like, and so we got offended really quick, which caused us to become defensive. So what did we do? We cut them deep, and we know exactly what to say because they told us, right? And it's like one of those things where we have to be mindful, right? If we're really going to create this safe space, if we're really going to love in a way that reflects this agape love that creates protection around the people that we're around, I'd have to consider how I would feel if I was in their shoes. And in the moments of offense, possibly take a step back, really reassess everything. Even if you got to step away from the conversation, step away from the scenery and come back. Because if you stay too long, it might be some things said up in here, right? And we don't want to get to that point because the relationship is far greater than this offense that was just told. And again, it's a really hard thing to catch in the moment. And the best way you're going to be able to grow at it is by being in those spaces. But I encourage you that if you find yourself there, I think there's nothing wrong with taking a step away from the conversation. There's nothing wrong with taking a step away from the scenery because it's real hot. Hey, it's real hot right now. Attitudes are flaring. So why don't we reconvene in a few minutes? Why don't we come back? Right? Because I think that could really set a good tone and precedence for future conversations, and nothing being said in the moment out of emotional offense that could cause the relationship to deteriorate fast rather. None of this is easy. See, this is what is so interesting about going through this text that I've learned as I continue to journey through this myself, as I continue to apply these things myself. The easy thing to do, y'all, really, the easy thing to do is what culture assumes to everyone. Hey, if you're not getting what you want, you should leave. Match the energy, reciprocate the energy, right? I'm gonna do to you what you do to me. And it's real easy to do that because that doesn't take effort. Like, that doesn't take much thought. That doesn't take much self-control and self-restraint. That doesn't take us having to look ourselves in the mirror and really asking ourselves what the purpose of this is. Like, it doesn't do that. It's real easy to act on the impulses that are in us in the moments that we're facing them. The hard thing to do is being able to constantly reassess our selfishness, reassess our thinking, reassess all those things in order to produce the most healthy relationships possible. None of this is easy. And as I mentioned earlier, there are going to be so many times in this journey that you are going to mess up. There are going to be so many times in this journey where you're going to be fighting back tears and frustration, possibly because you want to go up there and give somebody a piece of your mind. You want to speak what's on your mind. You want to give that. Yeah, like you're thinking of ways to get back at them this right now. But this is one of those moments where we got to pull back. What is the real mission here? Is the real mission and point of life to be right? Is the real mission and point of life to be the one to get all the credit and for them to apologize to me? Is that really the mission of life? Or is the mission as a believer to be reflecting the love of Christ and love them in such a way that they want to grow too, and they want to encourage and encounter transformation too? And there's something that we can learn from this entire experience to carry with us moving forward. And I think you'll see so much fruit from that, but it takes hard work and it takes dying to yourself. And that's one of the most uncomfortable things to do, but it's required of us, man. It's required of us, and in the relationships that we carry and the conversations we have with others, because we are ultimately called to be ambassadors of the kingdom, even in the relationships we carry with one another as believers. And so I think that carrying that mission changes the game in a lot of ways, right? So we want to be able to manage our offenses. We want to be slow to offense. What's the easiest way to be slow to offense? Well, Proverbs 14:29 tells us that one who is slow to wrath has great understanding. So we want to be able to get understanding, right? Instead of jumping to offense, man, let's slow down. Like, what exactly did you mean by that? We can ask it in a lot more gentle way, less tone, less, craziness happening. What did you mean by that? Can I get clarity on what you meant by that? And again, this takes so much practice, y'all. I'm not trying to insinuate to you that this is an overnight process. This is something you're going to have to work at every day. And you're going to have so many opportunities each day you wake up to have an opportunity to die to yourself in moments like that. But it's necessary, y'all, if we really want to reflect this love. And it's hard. But this is what creates the vulnerability, y'all. Like when we really engage in love with one another, this is the vulnerability that's necessary and is a risk. This is a risk because we don't know. Here's what's crazy. And we're going to come back around and wrap all this up in a video, just kind of take away really big takeaways that we've gotten from this journey so far. But I really want to tell you, man, like we don't know if somebody is really going to give this back to us. But this is why it's really about centering ourselves on Christ, who is never changing, and really building that genuine, authentic relationship with him to be able to set our temperature to where we move like this regardless. So even if I'm offended in the midst of the conversation, I am at the place in my journey now where I can still not only desire the best for you, but still respond with grace and love. Because truth is that response you gave me came from somewhere in something else. So there's something greater at work, an issue that's a bigger problem at the root. And it may not even be about me. Of course I can take it and treat it as if it's about me, but I don't even know if it's about me. So it's like, man, getting that perspective and getting that understanding, y'all, is hard work. It's hard work, but it's something that's necessary. So those are the questions that I want you to consider as you think through this part of 1 Corinthians 13, verse 7, it always protects. Can you create a safe space for others? Do people say that you have the capacity to create safe spaces? Do people feel safe to come to you about certain things that might be weighing on their heart and mind? Right? Do they feel like it's a safe space? Is that possible? Right? Are you willing to protect others even if you don't get what you want? Are you still desiring what's best for others and considering their positions, their perspectives, where they are, even when you're offended? Right? Do you use the information that they give you as ammo for later? Saving it up, storing it up. These are things that we find ourselves naturally doing that this love is calling us away from. That this love is calling us to die to. Because there's no way we can really sustain such a reflective love in our lives if that is how we're going to choose to move, which again is the easy way compared to this way that Christ is presenting to us through Paul, through the scriptures, not only in the usage of spiritual gifts, but in how to love one another. It's hard. Nothing's easy about this. But I promise you the fruit from it will blow your mind. The fruit from it will blow your mind. But you just have to be willing to die to yourself and put in the work to do this. And if you think it's over, think again, because in our next video, we're coming back and we're tackling it always trust. What does that look like? How do we apply that into our daily walk and daily journey as believers and learning to love at new heights that's reflective of Christ? Hit the like button, share this with a friend, subscribe if you're new, as we are over here dedicated to building happy, healthy, whole, and biblical, emphasis on the biblical, relationships in our lives. I appreciate y'all so much. And as always, until our next video and conversation, be easy and be breezy, my friend. Peace.